All right, so things are starting to heat up for the Cleveland Browns when it comes to free agency. Now, while I still think, and this kind of confirms it, that the Browns aren't going to be big players in day one and two of free agency, because right now they literally have negative cap space, but they'll figure that out because the cap is a myth sometimes in the NFL. But if you weren't convinced before the Browns trading for Amari Cooper, I mean, that was your day one of free agency move. Well, we'll see what else happens, right? Maybe there are some other dominoes to fall here at other positions. But as far as wide receiver goes, this is the big domino, right? Amari Cooper, he's a legit number one wide receiver. I don't think has he been the number one receiver out there in Dallas? I think he's lined up as the X receiver out there in Dallas for a little while. He's a little older, 27 years old. It's crazy now that that's like an old age when it comes to new NFL and how we see guys. But I mean, that used to be like a player's prime, but now if they ain't 25, we act like it's old now. But Amari Cooper is on the Browns. Now, what does this mean for the Browns and where they are going forward? At the very least, hey, you're in a way better position when it comes to pass catchers, right? I mentioned before that the Browns could be in a pass catcher crisis, right? Because you had David Njoku, who was not under a contract at that time. You had Austin Hooper, who you looked to move on from. You had Jarvis Landry, who you looked to move on from, which would have left you to the only guys contracted on your team being Harrison Bryant and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then maybe you could throw some rookies in there, but even if you do, it wasn't a great situation, right? But now you look at the situation, okay, you franchise tag David Njoku, so you will have David and Harrison Bryant at the very least. Reports are that they plan on hanging on to Austin Hooper. Why in the world would they want to do that, especially when they're up against the cap? I don't know, but that's what reports are. Then you head over to wide receivers. Look, they're going to have to get rid of Jarvis Landry at this point, or at least heavily restructure his deal. There's going to be a couple of more moves that might be coming down the line as well. But when it comes to Jarvis, yeah, that's a foregone conclusion. He has to go to eat Amari's money and everything else. But now at least you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, you have Amari Cooper, and you have David Njoku. Now, what kind of receiver are you getting with Amari Cooper? Let's check out his PFR real quick. But, you know, he's been a solid guy, a pretty consistent 1,000-yard wide receiver whenever he's been on a team for more than like a 16-game full season. He's been a 1,000-yard guy for the most part. He's had a couple of down years where he hasn't reached that number, but for the most part, that's who he has been. It's number one receiver production there the Browns are getting from Amari Cooper. Now, is this going to be earth-shattering? No. Is this going to completely change the passing game if other things don't improve? No. But is it enough to avoid the crisis if you don't want to draft a wide receiver top 15 in this draft? Absolutely, right? Now you have options at 13. And the Browns are very good at this, right? At giving themselves options, just in case, so they don't have to be deadlocked into a certain position going into the draft, right? We've seen this with edge rusher, right, where we thought edge rushers where they needed to go in the first round last year. Okay, we bring in Clowney. Now we're not deadlocked at edge rusher. We can adjust and make different moves here. You still have room here. And what I would expect, by the way, the compensation for this Amari Cooper trade is pretty negligible. It's a 5th-round pick at the end of the day and a pick swap for a 6th-rounder. So, I mean, negligible. What you're really paying for is the contract, right? That's why the trade value is so low, is because he has a $20 million cap hit for like the next 3 years, even though it's easy to move off of that $20 million after this year, if I'm not wrong on that. I'll check out the contract status and everything else with him in a second. But that's pretty much what the trade was for, right? They signed him to a big contract. They didn't want to keep him on that contract, considering that they had Michael Gallup, that they had CeeDee Lamb, and now, you know, now they want to move off of this. And look, there's an out here for the Browns. It's not really clear what the out is if you're looking at any of the cap websites, because this is all you get. You don't get any of the dead money or anything like that. So a lot of details is not known about this contract. But nonetheless, I think it's a good deal. I think you can get out of it after this year because he's 2 years into it, and usually with most NFL contracts, by the end of that third year, you can get out of those things, right? There's no such thing unless you're a quarterback of a quarterback contract. I mean, of a football contract that's going to guarantee you 5 years of guaranteed money, right? So it's probably something you can get out of at the end of this year, but it's a heavy hit for this year, right? What are the Browns going to do to adjust to that? Because remember, like Odell, people thought that contract was huge. He was at 14. People think this Jarvis contract is too big. He's going to be at 15. Amari's at 20, right? So that's much more. You already have $22 million dedicated to 2 tight ends there in David Njoku and Austin Hooper. Now, you can get off of Austin Hooper. You'll save like $6 million. So that will get you out of the red and into the positive, theoretically speaking. And then you could talk about some other moves that the Cleveland Browns can make here when it comes to cap. Moves that might not be popular, but have been coming for a very, very long time. Ever since Andrew Berry has come here, you can see that he's been kind of setting the table to have flexibility with these certain players. Now, who are these certain players that I'm hinting at that could be, a cap casualty, as we like to say? Well, the first one's J.C. Tretter, right? Okay, so the first one is J.C. Tretter, because you look at this dead cap number. Let me pull it up for you. You look at this dead cap number for J.C. Tretter right here. He's at a cap hit of $9.8 million, but a dead cap number of 1.6. So what you do is you subtract that 1.6 from his cap hit, and that's going to be how much you save on cap savings. So it's about $8.2 million in cap savings for this year that you can get. Case Keenum's gone. I mean, that's going to save you about the same amount of money, so about $7 million there. So now we're already talking about $14 million in cap space that the Browns can clear up. And the reason I think J.C. Tretter could be gone is just because they brought Nick Harris in a couple of years ago. Nick Harris is going into his third year. The third year is where you really want to get that offensive lineman on the field to play because you feel like they're strong enough now to play in the NFL. Nick Harris's main problem was that he wasn't strong enough to play when he was playing early in his career. Now he should be there, and he looked pretty decent when he played last year. So given that that's the situation, they're probably going to be comfortable moving off of J.C. Tretter and feel like they're not really going to miss anything. Even though J.C. Tretter is a really good player, they feel like they have good players to replace him. Same thing goes for Jack Conklin. Now, I don't know what the situation is and what you can do with Jack Conklin's contract. Right now, it says that Jack is, $17 million in dead cap, so it don't look like he's moving, right? He's going to stay. So you can't really do anything. Even if you cut him, you'll lose more money in the cap. So he's going to be safe here. But next year, he's probably gone, right? Because you have the guy that you drafted last year to replace him, who played pretty well, James Hudson. So now that you have those two situations settled, it might be time to pull the trigger on the J.C. Tretter one to save some cap space. Case Keenum can't come back. Now, the thing with Case Keenum is you're going to have to replace Case Keenum unless you go all out. Like if you go and trade for Derek Carr, you probably can just get away with having whoever as your backup quarterback or maybe drafting your backup quarterback. But if you're going to go into the season with Baker Mayfield, then you're probably going to want a better backup situation. So yes, you will save $7 million from cutting Case Keenum, but given what the quarterback situation could be, and if you're returning Baker, just because we've seen it go up and down with Baker, you're gonna want to have used that money for another backup quarterback. So yes, it's technically saving money, but no, you're not technically saving any money, right? Jarvis, again, that's going to be $14 million that you could save there from Jarvis Landry because he's a 16.3 cap hit this year. And who else would you be able to save a significant amount of money from, right? Like Austin Hooper after June 1st, maybe you could get about $6 million out of that. Again, you're going to have to sign another tight end, so you have to decide if that's worth it or not to you. Can you get a replacement for under that, or do you feel like you could just draft a replacement to be the third tight end and live with Harrison Bryant out there? That's all about their evaluation on Harrison Bryant. If they're going to be insistent on keeping Austin Hooper despite cap savings, if they can cut him, then tells you that they're not really high on Austin Hooper, that they're not high on Harrison Bryant, which could become a storyline coming forward there. But that's really it, right? When it comes to cap savings, the Browns don't have. I mean, you could save $4 million if you cut Nick Chubb, but that's ridiculous, right? Like, there's nothing else that would make sense. So it's like Case Keenum, J.C. Treader. Who else? Let me double check, make sure I'm not missing out on anybody. Yeah. Case Keenum, J.C. Treader, Jarvis Landry, maybe Austin Hooper. But again, they're insistent that they're going to keep Austin Hooper. Okay. But those are the three guys that you could really get rid of right now. Like, yes, if you traded Baker Mayfield, you would be able to save some cap space, but if you're trading Baker Mayfield, you're probably bringing on a bigger cap hit when it comes to quarterback. Like, it's either going to be Derek Carr or another player. So that is going to be the situation there. Like, you can get rid of those three players, save a little bit of money, but also, when it comes to a guy like J.C. Treader, that's a free cap space saving. So that's why that's going to absolutely probably happen in the near future, right? They have the replacement on the roster. They don't have to sign somebody in free agent to play the position, and they would just save that $7 million straight up, right? When it comes to Case Keenum, a little bit more dicey of a situation because depending on who you have in here, even though Case Keenum should be gone, right? He should probably not be on the roster next year. The issue isn't that you want to keep Case Keenum. The issue is when you cut Case Keenum, you're going to have to sign somebody to fill that position. So it's not really a freeing up of money there. Jarvis Landry, now you can cut him and actually not save, but have that $14 million go of use because you already have Amari Cooper on the roster, who has the biggest cap hit this year of any player of the Cleveland Browns, because even Baker's cap hit's at 18.8. He's at 20. So he's the highest cap hit. I don't think he's actually the highest paid. I think the highest paid is Myles Garrett when it comes to guarantees and dead cap savings and everything else. But that's the current situation for the Cleveland Browns. They are in a little bit of a cap crisis, I would say, but they have an easily solvable cap crisis. They have one move that they will probably absolutely do to save money, and they have another move that they could do if they really wanted to. They're in a fine enough position here to free up some space to have some one-year deals available for some guys if they wanted to do that. But we'll see what happens here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, look, Amari Cooper's a positive thing. This is a good news thing, right? Just like David Njoku was good news because you had a pass-catching crisis, and whoever was going to be the quarterback, you needed somebody out there, a veteran out there to catch the ball if you weren't going to keep Jarvis Landry at the number that you had Jarvis Landry at. This tells me that they value Amari Cooper more than they valued Jarvis Landry, or at least what Amari Cooper can do in his skill set-wise. So that's the situation going forward. The Browns have traded for Amari Cooper. Is this signs of more to come? I don't know. They're kind of limited when it comes to cap space. But as we've seen when it comes to the cap in the NFL, that thing can be manipulated easily. So it's almost not even worth stressing about at this point. But yeah, the Browns bringing in Amari Cooper. That's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with the Cleveland Browns in this roster. Look, free agency starts in a few days, and I think things are going to get mighty interesting. The word on Baker, and this is just the word on him. This is not me trying to express what I want. But the word on Baker is that, it's not as secure as maybe some people thought it would have been a couple of days ago or even a couple of weeks ago, where the report came out that Andrew Berry had personally promised Baker that he's going to be the starting quarterback next year, or whatever that report was. Because, if that was the case, he wouldn't be brought up so much in these reports, right? Like, the Browns are in every report for every quarterback that's available right now. I don't think that's where there's smoke, there's usually fire. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think they are looking to upgrade if they can. If they can't, they'll live with Baker, right? That's where they're at. Now, who they consider upgrade, again, that's on them. But that's what they're probably looking to do here, right? So Baker could come back. I don't think it's out the realm of possibility, but I also don't think it's out the realm of possibility that in a couple of weeks here we have a new quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. So that is something to watch going forward. And now that this situation, they have shored up some things at wide receiver to make this a more attractive destination for some quarterbacks. That could come into play, right? That they got Amari Cooper, they have Donovan Peoples-Jones, they have David Njoku under contract. So now that's something that you could sell to a quarterback or a team or whatever that you want to kind of make yourself more attractive. And that's the situation right now for the Cleveland Browns. We'll see what happens going forward. But that's my thoughts on this whole trade, everything surrounding it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.